With this here, this ain't about being flashy. This is game day, son. It's only about one thing. Getting that W. That's the only thing that matters right now. Boy, are you ready?
The past is the past, you know? It's a new day, bro. My day. Gotta do it now.
Blindside Fantasy Football Podcast back for our Week 10 recap show. Gonna recap over our bold predictions for Week 10. Recap all the Week 10 games. Preview Thursday night's Colts-Titans game. And then go over the waiver wire pickups and play Matt's all-in game. Matt, how's it going tonight?
It's all right. It's just Week 10. We're getting to that end of the regular season. It's kind of sad.
I feel like every time I go to you, it's like talking to Eeyore. It's always like, well,
yeah,
it's all right. All right, so let's recap over our bold predictions here. Matt, my couple ones here. I had Matthews going for 100 yards, rushing and a touchdown. Finished with 59 and a touch, so still not crazy far off, but obviously didn't get the yardage I was looking for. I said Nick Foles would have 4 touchdowns. Finished with 3, so still pretty good there.
Droppable.
Droppable, Rob Druin style. Matt Ryan, I said, would have his 3rd straight game in single digits. Finished with 11 fantasy points, so I was almost right on with that one again. And then MJD, this was a crazy bold prediction. I said top 5 running back. He actually finished 12th, which ironically was exactly where I ranked him this week. We talked about this in Friday's podcast. You and Rob both had him at 20. I had him at 12, and he finished exactly at 12 this week. How did you do on your bold predictions?
Not so well this week. I had Steven Jackson going for 125 and a touchdown. Pretty close.
That didn't work out.
Close. 9 for 11. 3 receptions, 9 yards receiving. I went to the Golden Tate well again, and he proved me correct again. I thought he'd bounce back after the Revis Island game. He had 106 and a touchdown. I said 100 and a TD, so I guess I was a little off there. Keenan Allen killed me, and I'm sure a lot of people out there, a lot of people are expecting a big week. I said 125 and 2 touchdowns. Really thought they'd have to throw to keep up. He had 4 for 41, so not the best week. 1 out of 3 ain't bad, though. I'm betting 333 in baseball, and any coach would take me.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, if we're talking baseball, not too bad, but we're talking football, so little weak. But before we jump into recapping this Week 10 game, just want to touch on, obviously, the big news today with Dwayne Bowe getting arrested shortly before midnight on Sunday. I was pulled over for driving 48 and 35 in his Audi A4, and the police officer smelled marijuana.
Hold on, wait, Audi A8. This is a professional football player. He ain't driving no A4.
Yeah, I know. He just signed a big contract, too.
It's an A8.
There it is, A8. But police officer smells marijuana, searches the car, finds, I think, 10 grams of pot somewhere in the car, then like 4 more grams in a bag.
Yep. A buddy that was with him, I think, had a couple joints on him.
Couple joints on him, too. So, he signed a big deal this offseason. Only 33 receptions this year for 369 yards and 2 touchdowns. Man, what were the Chiefs thinking with that huge... even at the time when they signed him, all of us were like, wow, that's a huge deal for him, for Dwayne Bowe, but after the season and after this, it's looking even worse, isn't it?
Well, they're undefeated, so he might not be doing it numbers-wise, but he's helping them win games, obviously.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
A little bit of marijuana. Big deal. It's going to be legal in all the states soon anyways.
Pretty soon, that's for sure. All right, so Week 10, let's talk about it. Seahawks-Falcons. Not a ton of unexpected moments in this game. Steven Jackson, Matt Ryan still underperformed, like Matt kind of talked about a little earlier with Steven Jackson. Upcoming games against the Bucks, Bills, Packers, and Redskins. A lot of good defenses that can be thrown on. Do you think this is a buy low for Matt Ryan?
Boy, it's the case of what we've seen here in New England with Tom Brady. He's a great quarterback, but when you don't have any weapons, I guess unless you're Aaron Rodgers, it's tough. So I don't know. I don't know if he's a buy low. I don't think so. He's not a guy I trust and want to play until I see Roddy come have a huge game and be back to normal, which will open things up for Tony and the rest of the offense a little bit. I'm staying away from Matt Ryan as much as I can.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a couple weeks ago when we talked about, I think it was Trent Richardson, Ray Rice. If Ray Rice was a buy low, and it's kind of that name value is kind of kill it for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though he's been terrible, the name value still holds something. Russell Wilson, 3rd highest passing yard game of his career, highest QB rating, Of course, this is a week I played against him and stupid Golden Tate in 2 of my bigger leagues. Matt, you love Percy Harvin, and he potentially comes back this week. Where do you think you're going to rank him this week, and where does he land for you the rest of the season?
I've got him top 25 this week, and for the rest of the season, I've got him top 15. I think he's just going to be utilized well by Carroll there in Seattle. This week, I know it's his first week back. We've seen guys coming back from, suspensions, injuries, and playing pretty well in their first week. Blackman and Gordon, just to name a few. And then you have, this is his old team. This is a team that things didn't end all rosy with. So I wouldn't be surprised if Percy wants to shove it up the old, of Ziggy Wilf and the Minnesota Vikings. So I like him this year. The top 25 ranking is just more because it's hard for me to really recommend a guy that's coming back from a pretty serious injury, but definitely like him rest of the season. Like I said, top of 15, and this week top 25.
It's kind of weird because anytime a player comes back from an injury like that, the first week back I'm always leery of starting them because you don't know what the workload was like. And then Andre Brown, and we'll talk about him later.
Yeah, how did I not say him?
Something like that comes up, and it's just like, all right, wow, I was way wrong. They want him back from day one here. I mean, Jesus.
Brown was different. He had been running for a while. He was on that PUP list. He couldn't come back, but he was ready a couple weeks ago. Definitely a surprise, though. I thought Hillis was going to get more work.
Yeah. We'll talk about that game a little bit later on, but just, again, sometimes when you think the workload isn't going to be there in the first game, the workload's there and then some.
Right. So, what do you think of Percy?
I'm reluctant to start him because of the workload, but wouldn't be surprised. We have a question about Percy Harvin versus somebody else a little bit later on, so we'll get into that. I think it'll give me a chance to kind of explain more as to what I think about Percy,
right.
Where I got him this week. But Lions-Bears, Cutler leaves the game with a high ankle sprain after coming back from his groin injury. Didn't seem to matter for either Marshall or Jeffrey in this game. Marshall 7 for 139 and 2 touchdowns on 12 targets. Jeffrey 9 for 114, had a touchdown called back on 18 targets. Jeffrey now has double-digit fantasy points in 5 of the last 6 in standard scoring. Since week 4, he's the wide receiver 7 overall. Ironically, Brandon Marshall's number 6 wide receiver during that stretch. Are you ready to call Jeffrey a top 10 wide receiver for the rest of the season?
I'll say top 15.
For me, it's kind of getting there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Look at those numbers. It proves it.
Even the targets. He's getting the targets. Like I said, since week 4, he's been wide receiver 7. So it's tough anytime you want to talk about the second receiving option on a team being top 10 or even top 15. But he's definitely getting there for me. I think, for me, he's probably top 12-ish.
Yeah.
Not quite top 10 yet, but getting there.
I drafted him in our home league preseason. I didn't, he got off to a little bit of a slow start, and I just didn't think this was an offense that could sustain 2 solid wide receivers at the fantasy, in the fantasy world, and I was definitely wrong. He's really playing well, and I think it's hilarious. They give him that end around like once, twice a week.
Yeah, he typically gets like 4 or 5 yards on it, gets like nothing on it, but they keep giving it to him at least once a week. So, who would you rather have, Alshon Jeffrey or Torrey Smith rest of the year?
I'm going to say Torrey Smith still, but it's very close.
For me, it's Jeffrey, and it's been Jeffrey for a couple of weeks.
You know what? I'll go with you, Jeffrey.
As much as I like the consistency of Torrey, he doesn't. I know he got a touchdown this past weekend, but he typically doesn't get the touchdowns, doesn't get the red zone looks. And that's the type of thing I would want out of a top 15 receivers. Red zone looks, touchdowns, something like that.
Yeah, if Ray Rice could give any kind of semblance of Ray Rice, that I think I'd switch that around. But
I saw a wanted poster today. Wanted Ray Rice, circa 2012. If you've seen his yardage or his touchdowns, please let us know. But Alshon Jeffrey or Vincent Jackson, who in the last 3 games combined only has 10 fantasy points.
I'm still going to take VJax.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm still going VJax too, but VJax is so boom or bust, and he has just been busting out lately.
You skipped Garcon.
Yeah, what do you think? Garcon or Alshon Jeffrey?
I'll say Alshon. Garcon's been healthy this year. Maybe that's just in the back of my head, the injury thing. And, like I said, he has been healthy this year. He's been playing well, but I think I'll go Jeffrey there.
Yeah, I'm going Jeffrey over that one as well. Joik Bell, surprising 10 carries in this game. Reggie Bush has 14. This was the second least amount of carries for Bush this season in a non-injury shortened game. Meanwhile, it was the most carries for Joik Bell this year. Are you worried about Bell eating into Bush's numbers? Do you think this is them kind of trying to preserve him from injury, kind of save him a little bit on the workload?
I do. I think it is that exactly. They've gotten pretty lucky to this point, working him as hard as they have, and he's stayed relatively healthy. I think that's just the case, like you said. Yeah, they're a team that's in position. It's looking like playoffs for them, and I think it is just let's keep Reggie healthy. They definitely need him in the playoffs. He's their best running back, no question. Joik's serviceable for sure. Does it worry me? I don't think so. Reggie's involved, passing, running. He's a big play kind of guy. And I love the offense there, so it doesn't worry me.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it at all. Actually, I kind of like it because it'll keep Bush healthier longer.
Yeah.
Short term, it's going to hurt him a little bit as far as fantasy points go, but I'd much rather have, Bush getting consistent 17 to 18 touches a game than a 20-touch game and the following week a 10-touch game because he's, hurt or banged up or getting hurt or what have you. Eagles, Packers. Nick Foles, like I said, following up his 7 TD performance with 3 more, now has 16 passing touchdowns on the year with no turnovers. In every game he started and finished 16-plus fantasy points with an average of 28 per game. Multiple TDs in all of those games. Faces the Redskins this week. Is he going to be a top 5 guy for you?
I think I got him at 7 this week. I just don't want to...
Just not ready to put him up there yet, huh?
Yeah, 7 is definitely a good ranking, and yeah, it's basically one of those. It's just not enough of a track record, although it's definitely growing. Seven's the highest I've had him, though.
I gotta tell you, I had him at 7 last week, and it's gonna be tough for me not to put him in the top 5.
Yeah,
I haven't done my rankings yet. I'll do them tonight, but.
There's some nice matchups out there for, Russell Wilson's playing Minnesota. He's been playing awesome.
I'd be very surprised if I still don't have Foles in my top 5.
Yeah.
That's a crazy good matchup for him as well.
Yeah.
Riley Cooper.
The only thing, Marcus, 18 passes and I think 22 or 23 in the last 2 games. So it can limit those numbers. Obviously, it hasn't lately, but... not a lot of opportunities there. It seems like they like to run that football.
In this past game, though, we saw a lot of long touchdowns to Riley Cooper.
Yep.
So on those drives, that could have been the chance we would have had.
Yeah, good point.
2 or 3 more attempts on each drive, which would have boosted up those numbers, obviously. Speaking of Riley Cooper, though, in the games he's had with Foles when he's played when Foles has played the whole game, 18, 32, and 22 fantasy points, 100+ yards and a touchdown, at least a touchdown. In every game they've played this year. So rest of the season, assuming Foles is the starter, Riley Cooper or Eric Decker?
Eric Decker.
See, I'm going Cooper there.
Oh, wait, assuming Foles is the starter.
Assuming Foles is the
which
starter.
I think is going to be the case.
Yeah,
come on.
I do too. I'm going Cooper just because Decker's been kind of declining lately. Mm-hmm. I love Decker. You know how much I love Decker, and I've talked about him a lot in this podcast, but I love Cooper with Foles.
Yeah, all right, so here's the answer for me. If you're going to guarantee me Foles is the quarterback, which obviously you can't right now, even though we think that, I'll say Cooper. Otherwise, it's Eric Decker for me.
All right, and then Cooper or Keenan Allen. And I think this one's a slam dunk for me.
Yeah, I'm going to go Cooper.
Yeah, it's slam dunk
Again,
for me.
if Foles is definitely the quarterback, you can guarantee me that, which I think I almost can.
Yeah.
How could you not play him? 16 touchdowns, no picks.
You got to start playing him.
Yeah.
Scott Tolzien for the Packers comes in after Seneca Wallace gets hurt. Has pretty nice rapport going on with Jarrett Boykin. 8 for 122 on 13 targets. Nelson still getting his targets, still had 10. Eddie Lacy, another 20-plus carry game. Next year, where do you project he's going to go in drafts? I'm going to say 9th or 10th overall. I know it's really early to be talking about next year already, but...
Yeah, he's next year's Trent Richardson.
Yeah.
In a better offense, in a better situation. So.
And a better player, I think.
Yeah,
I'm a better player than Trent Richardson right now.
It's amazing because I've so been a huge fan of Trent since college, and I don't understand what's going on there. I really don't. There's one thing you can't really see. You can when you watch the film is the vision of a running back. And I think that's just something, he looks good, but you got to have that. You got to be able to follow your blockers, and I don't know if he's got it. So yeah, Eddie Lacy might be a better player. I might have to say that, and if I don't, I'm an idiot because it's just showing it. Yeah, I think you're right. Top 10. As long as he doesn't have another injury this year, that's the only thing, the caveat I still have with Eddie Lacy, the injury thing. He wasn't the healthiest guy in college. With the work he's getting, too, it's like I think he's the most likely to get hurt the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's definitely looming. It's definitely one of those things that could pop up at any minute. Jaguars-Titans, Jake Locker hurts his foot in this game. It appears to be season. Matt, you know all about this already, but on Sunday morning I made the decision to go against my rankings and start Locker over Romo and Kaepernick. My thought process was kind of, the Jags were allowing a passing touchdown in all but one game this year and 15-plus fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks in 6 of the last 7. I was worried about Dez and his epidural shots he was needing to get through practice. Kaepernick going against a tough Panthers defense, but Locker just stunk up the joint. Just negative 1.2 points for me before leaving the game. Fitzpatrick kind of showed, though, that I was on the, my decision-making was in line. It was pretty much my analysis of that defense was correct. Fitzpatrick finishes with 22 fantasy points. Just a really frustrating game for me as far as Locker went. I think he could have had a much nicer day.
Hey, the moral of the story, follow your motherfucking rankings.
No, hey, but listen, I would have been right. That's the
you
point.
wouldn't have. It's a different human.
Disappointing game here, though, for both of the running backs. Both had great matchups and combined for 71 yards on 33 carries for just 2.15 yards per carry. And while MJD was not the top 5 back that I projected him for, like I said earlier, I was dead right on having him at 12. Chris Johnson, though, 12 carries to Sean Green's 9. Green, since Green's been back, Chris Johnson 35 carries to Sean Green's 18. What do you think of Green's value moving forward? Is he a flex guy every week?
This game was odd. I thought both of them were going to have pretty good days. We talked about it in the podcast Friday night. I thought they were just going to get ahead in this game and just pound the Jaguars to oblivion with CJ and Green. Green's value moving forward, flex play, hope for a touchdown type guy. CJ 2K or CJ 2 YPC. Yeah. We probably should get back to that name. It was just a disappointing game. I really loved the matchup. I put him at 7. I was as high as I had been all year, and I was as wrong as I could have been all year. So I don't know what to think about him moving forward. He doesn't have the best matchup coming up this week. Green is getting a lot more work since he's been back. So if you can trade Chris Johnson right now, tell him, forget about last week. He's, what about the last week? Great schedule. I'm ready. Just get rid of him. I'm sick and tired of it.
Rams Colts. Did anyone see this blowout coming? I mean, this was just a crazy, crazy game right from the beginning. And I know for me, again, I'm going to rant a little bit here. I was so frustrated with Adam Vinatieri. Since week 2, he's successfully made at least 2 field goals a game. To me, he was that consistent kicker that was going to get you close, if not double-digit fantasy points, close to it every week. Twice they were in the red zone and went for it on 4th down, and of course they should have because they were down by so much. Once they were intercepted, so 3 red zone opportunities, 3 field goal opportunities for him down the tubes. And then when they finally did score a touchdown, they went for 2, which I thought was ridiculous when they were already down 35 points in the 4th quarter. First time in 154 games Vinatieri held without a point. It's 10 years. 10 years he's gone without a point. And, of course, he would do it this week.
You always give me shit for talking about how good my team is. You have one of these little pointless rants every week that I'm sure no one wants to hear either. You just wasted 65 seconds of people's lives on a kicker in the history of Adam Vinatieri. Who the cares about him?
All right, I hear you. All right.
So I get to talk about my winnings. You can talk about your rants. That's the new rule.
Let's talk about your boy Trent Richardson then.
All right, fine. Let's do it.
I
don't really want to. Do we have to?
I think all we can do is just laugh at this guy. 5 for 2 rushing, 3 for 33 receiving.
I'm not going to laugh at anybody after all this Martin stuff going on.
I got to say this. If we're not spending any time on Vinatieri, no more time on Trent Richardson. Moving on.
He sucks.
Zach Stacy. Another high-volume game, 26 carries for 62 yards rushing and a touchdown. Here's a question. Next year, who are you drafting higher, Zach Stacy or Trent Richardson?
Good. That's a great question.
I think it's a slam dunk for me.
Yeah, and it's going to be Stacy, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Where's T. Rich going to go next year? Are people going to say, okay, last year was a throwaway.
That's what I'm wondering.
Back.
How many
Andrew
people...
Luck, whole off season. I'm not going to hate him again next year. I'll fall off a cliff with him again, I bet.
I mean, and the thing, too, is next year, how worried are you going to be with guys like Vic Ballard and Donald Brown behind Trent Richardson? You know what I mean?
Yep.
You're not really going to be that worried about those types of guys. But for me, Zach Stacy's a slam dunk for me. He's been awesome. He's been getting tons of work. I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer, but I think that's going to be a serious question come August of next year.
He's the new MJD.
Yeah. Tavon Austin, 3 touchdowns in this game, 2 long receiving touchdowns, and a punt return touchdown. Do you think this is fluke? Do you think this is fluke, or are you a fan of this?
It's a fluke. 2 receptions, 3 targets. He made some big plays. This is what he was supposed to do all year. Not anything I'm counting on. I still don't want to touch a receiver in that team. I don't want to touch anybody in that team besides Zach Stacy.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally just big, plays here. That's what he does. And this will happen every so often. It just so happened it happened 3 times in one game. Lightning in a bottle. You started him, you struck it. Raiders, Giants, like we said, Andre Brown, so much for us, working him back in slowly here. 30 carries, 115 yards, and a touchdown. Is he a top 20 running back rest of the season for you?
Yes, which isn't hard to do in today's NFL. But
I think I want to see it one more time. That offensive line for the Giants historically this season has been terrible. I want to see it one more time because he's not always going to get 30 carries.
No, but he is going to get all the work. He is a pretty good player. I think the biggest question with him is the injury concern, which is clearly very high with him. Yeah. So, top 20, though, I'll say for sure.
All right. I don't want to talk about Knicks anymore because we all know that he's a bum, but let's talk about Victor Cruz here. Now held scoreless in 5 straight games, only 1 touchdown in his last 8. After starting the season with back-to-back 100-yard games, he now hasn't had a 100-yard game in the last 5. Matt, you're a Cruz owner. Are you ready to accept that he's now just a top 25 wide receiver the rest of the season?
Oh, hell no. He's still the number 1 targeted guy on the team. I think he had 10 targets this week.
You know who the number 1 targeted guy on the Rams is? Chris Givens. It doesn't matter. If your quarterback is playing like crap, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I still believe Andre Brown being back is going to help this offense a little bit, and I'm no way he's top 25 for me.
I just want to say this too, real quick. I mean, this is kind of a chicken before the egg thing, but I don't know if it's Victor Cruz playing bad is affecting Eli Manning, or Eli Manning is playing bad, which is affecting Victor Cruz. But Eli Manning, when he's thrown for at least 300 yards this season, Cruz has had at least 100 yards receiving. I mean, I know it's kind of, like I said, chicken before the egg situation. Hey, if one guy's doing good, the other guy's doing good. But one way or another, if Manning's not performing, neither is Cruz. And then I just want to point out again, remember how last week I was saying start your defense against the Giants? I think you keep rolling with this. Worked out pretty well here. 17 fantasy points for the Raiders, and should have been a lot more. Lost points for a pick 6, and then they lost more points after a pick was brought back to their own 5-yard line, where obviously they gave up another touchdown. This week, the Packers play them, and then also play, Matt, your Vikings next week. So I think they got to be your number 1 defensive team pickup. I mean, that's two great matchups in a row. Like I said, I think this is going to be a great move. This will be your streaming defenses, play the defense that plays the Giants. Raiders side, not a whole lot to talk about, and there's not going to be a whole lot to talk about when your quarterback is going for under 200 yards a game.
Hold on 1 second. Go back to that. This week they play the Packers, the Giants. So you're saying you want to play the Packers?
The Packers defense versus the Giants, yes, absolutely.
Yep. And then they play,
and then the Packers play the
Vikings. Oh, okay.
So
right.
2 good matchups in a row.
All right. Them. Yep. I thought you were saying to pick up the Vikings against the Giants. I'm like,
I would never recommend the Vikings for anything.
I see what you're saying.
Raiders side, though, like I said, prior averaging less than 200 yards passing. Nothing really to talk about here. I mean, Rashad Jennings, I guess, looks good again, but nothing really much on this Raiders side.
Yeah, last 4 games, Pryor's throwing at about a 50% completion percentage clip. He has what they're calling a sprained MCL. And he admitted that he's lost some explosiveness from this. I think there's more to be said about that. I think that's the reason why he's been struggling so much lately. This week, 19 rushing yards, so that's not your typical prior game. It scares me with him and with Denarius for a little bit until he gets healthy and shows that he's playing back to where he was.
I say Pryor reminds me a little bit of Kaepernick. If he's not getting you points with his legs, he's not getting you points.
Yep.
I mean, because the
passing
yards are never going to be there.
On his 93-yard run, he had 15 points. He finished that game with 15.
Right, exactly. I mean, if he's not getting the points for you with his legs, he's not getting you points. Bills Steelers, another disappointing day here for the Bills running backs. Steelers allowing the second most fantasy points to opposing running backs this season heading into this game. Fred Jackson and Spiller combined 20 carries for just 78 yards. I'm still not worried about either of them. A guy I am worried about, though, and I've been saying this, I think, for weeks now, Le'Veon Bell, 22 for 57 yards rushing and a touchdown. 4 of the last 6 games with 3.6 yards per carry or less. Just 3.3 yards per carry on the season. Are you ready to call it quits on Le'Veon Bell?
Why would I call it quits on him? What did he score, 13 points this week?
I mean, he has 4 rushing touchdowns on the year. He is getting the touchdowns.
He's getting the touches, he's getting the receptions, and he's also scoring the touchdowns. No, I'm fine with Bell.
I hate him with a passion. I just absolutely hate him. If he's not getting those touchdowns for you, he is absolutely nothing. Bengals, Ravens, that was a hell of a catch by A.J. Green, huh? I mean...
No, it fell in his hands.
Yeah,
it was simple.
I mean, just to be in the right place at the right time,
yep.
it just is great. I love seeing that. Next time, if you're the Ravens, you need to just swat it down. I don't understand what that guy was thinking. Why would you hit it back up in the air? I mean, if you're going to hit it back up in the air, at least, Shaquille O'Neal it and put it into the 5th row. Don't lightly... I don't even know what he was thinking, but... Green finishes with another nice day, 8 for 151 and a touchdown. Now has over 100 yards receiving in 5 straight games. I think this is why you obviously drafted him as the number 2 overall wide receiver. Matt, you obviously made a great pickup this week in our league. Tyler Eifert. Gresham was out, had a career-high 10 targets, including 3 for 55 with a 40-yard reception. Next year is Gresham's final year in his rookie deal. I think now is the time to scoop up Eifert for Dynasty Leagues. What do you think?
Yeah, don't give me too much credit. I love to take a lot of it, but 55, I wouldn't say it was a great pickup. You did like to see the 10 targets. It was obviously a correlation with Gresham being out. I could see them sticking with 2 tight ends. A lot of teams are going to, a 2 tight end situation from time to time in games, and these guys are both talented players. I like Eifert, though, more as a talent. The kid's a stud, athletic freak, big guy. I definitely like him. I agree with you. I'd like to scoop him up, and I actually did draft him in a league that I'm playing in. That's a dynasty league for that reason. I just like his potential for the future.
He does have really good potential in dynasty league.
Wish he could have pulled in some more of those targets this week, but
they'll come. They'll come. First game this year that we saw where Giovanni Bernard finished with more carries than Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis. Nice to see them finally getting him more involved than Green Ellis.
Yeah, and going back to the Tyler Eifert, Gresham was kind of a game-time decision, so we got to think he's probably back this week. I don't think you'll see another 10 targets for Eifert next week.
No. Ray Rice in this game, 18 for 31 rushing. Harbaugh said, talking about Ray Rice and Bernard Pierce, he said, I think whichever guy is playing better should get more carries as we're going forward. Since Ray Rice came back from his quote-unquote injury, he's averaging just 2.35 yards per carry. In a 10-team league, I'm okay with dropping him if someone's better on your waiver wire. I mean, not 12-team leagues, but I think 10-team leagues, he's getting there for me. We talked about him earlier, but who would you rather have? 2 bums here, Trent Richardson or Ray Rice?
Ray Rice, definitely more work.
Yeah, I'd say still Rice for me. But I got another one for you, and I think this one's a lot closer. I actually have this decision to make in one of my PPR leagues. But in a PPR league, would you rather have Ray Rice or Riley Cooper?
I just can't drop Ray Rice. I don't care if I die with him on my team. I can't do it.
I got to tell you, I have the waiver claim in right now for Riley Cooper, and Ray Rice is my guy that's going.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy. It's crazy to think about that. Panthers, 49ers, not a whole lot of surprise in this game as well. Kaepernick and Cam combined, they couldn't throw for 300 yards in this game. D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart continue to share carries. Odd to see Tolbert kind of less involved in this game, just 2 carries. My one big takeaway here was that Mario Manningham, having a team-high 6 targets, also led the team in yards and tied for receptions. Kaepernick this year, since week 2, only averaging 158 passing yards per game. So I think Manningham it's only relevant for really, really deep leagues, but I think it's something to pay attention to. What do you think about Manningham coming back?
I brought him up last week. Coming back, I think he's, if he still has what he had prior to injury, he's definitely their most explosive wide receiver on the roster right now. Obviously, if Crabtree can come back healthy, it'll be a different story. Not a guy I'm rostering unless I've got a spot to stash and it's a real deep league, like you said. Certainly not, I don't think a 10, 12, 14 maybe. 14, I'd say, yeah, pick him up. Go ahead and put him on your roster. I just want to mention, too, they were D-Will and J. Stu shared carries. Stewart got 13 and D-Will got 8 this week.
That's still shared carries.
I understand, but this was only his second game back, and he's getting more work than D-Will, who's been playing well. Yeah. I rated him higher this week of all 3. I put Stewart ahead.
And I think even last week, Jonathan Stewart finish with more yards?
Yep, he did.
I had a couple injury notes here just on the 49ers. Vernon Davis suffers concussion in this game, so make sure you pay attention to him and see what his availability is going to be like for Week 11. And then finally, Harbaugh said that he's not ready to activate Crabtree from the PUP list yet. I think he still has a little bit more time, but sounds like maybe he is a little bit further off than I originally thought.
Yeah.
Texans-Cardinals, with the announcement that Arian Foster is done for the year, Ben Tate steps up as the lead role with Dennis Johnson doing his best Ben Tate impersonation. Neither of them look good here. Tate 15 for 56, Johnson 4 for 7. Obviously, as the season draws to a close here this year for fantasy football players, we'll start focusing more on next year and talking about next year. So where do you think Arian Foster is going to go in drafts next year since his season this year is over?
I wanted to say, too, that with Tate Johnson not performing well, that's something I expected, and I'm sure, I know you did as well. It's a tough matchup, so I like Tate this week. I honestly don't know where he's going to be drafting, and it's just kind of stupid to answer the question because we don't know what's going to happen. He's going to be a free agent next year, so do they keep him after this injury concern they're having? Tate's contract is also up. And I think they make the decision to go with a younger guy in Tate.
Yeah, there's a lot of miles on Foster.
But honestly, I'd be totally guessing. I honestly don't know. Wherever he goes, he'll probably be a starting running back. You got to figure that. Can almost guarantee it. So you're probably right. He'll probably be around that 3rd round. And depending on what the situation is, how healthy he is, he's a guy that I love. So I'm not staying away if he's looking good in the preseason and he's healthy. I hated
him this year. I'll hate him again next year.
He can do it all. Catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run the football.
His name value is going to keep him up, I think, in fantasy drafts next year way higher than it should be. Andre Johnson, just want to move on to him right now. Now has 5 touchdowns in his last 2 games with Case Keenum. Had 5 touchdowns in his last 28 games combined, with Matt Schaub. Are you buying Andre Johnson with Case Keenum?
Yeah, this was a tough matchup too in Arizona with Peterson. So it's Case realizes Andre Johnson is a stud. Let's get him the football, and if I'm in the red zone, let's throw it to my best guy. Case did look a little bit confused in this game. This was the first time I've thought he actually didn't look very good. Really, really affected by the pressure. And it's a copycat league. I'm interested to see what's going to happen this week. He was just about 50% completion percentage. Johnson only had about 38 yards receiving, I think it was. But you like to see the touchdowns. But I like it. I definitely like it. With him scoring, that's just something you don't see. Like you said, 28 games combined, he had 5. Now he's got 5 in the last 2. So
yeah,
I ranked him I have him top 5 this week.
Yeah, I was going to say I will too. Ellington, again, shows that even with less carries, still more productive than Mendenhall. I still don't understand why they're continuing to use Mendenhall. Mendenhall on a 1-year deal, so I think especially in Dynasty Leagues, you should be going out and targeting Ellington, because next year he is going to tear it up, I think. Andre Roberts in this game, a surprise 8 targets. I feel this may have just been part of the game plan that the Texans had against the Cardinals. I'm not looking into this too much at all.
No.
Broncos, Chargers. Peyton throws 4 more TDs, and the whole world yawns. We've come to kind of expect this now, but I don't think people are realizing that Peyton's on pace right now for still 58 touchdowns. In 7 out of his 9 games this year, he's thrown at least 3. I mean, think about that. 7 out of 9 games, 3 touchdowns or more. That's nuts.
You play franchise in Madden. When I'm one that doesn't play all the games. I like to build my team. You go through a season, and a quarterback has 58 passing touchdowns. I'm like, damn it, I got to go change the minutes. That's just too fake. I hate. This is real life.
This is real. Even in his 2 worst games this year, in those 2 games, he had 2 passing touchdowns. Those were his worst games of the year.
Drop them.
I mean, droppable. Rob Drew and drop. We got to make that a drop so we can start playing that from now on. Rob just going, he's droppable. What do you think? I mean, he's going to hit 50, right? He's got 33 already. I mean, it's a couple of tough matchups, twice against the Chiefs, once against the Titans. I mean, he's going to hit 50, right? That's easy.
I think so, yeah. I mean, you hate seeing the Chiefs twice. And if you're a Chiefs owner, you hate seeing Denver twice, that's for sure, to finish out your season. Getting a lot of questions about that, by the way. Chiefs, do I keep them? What am I supposed to do with this Denver thing coming up? But
I'd be worried.
That does, the Chiefs are a stud defense, but yeah, he's going to hit 50. I think that's, barring injury, no question. Speaking of injury, MRI he had right on his ankle revealed nothing. He's good. High ankle sprain, big deal.
You think he's going to be the number 1 quarterback drafted next year?
No.
Yeah, I think people are going to be worried about his age and the injuries, and eventually that cliff's going to catch up to him.
Yeah, I think if he's number 2, I think Breeze has been every bit as good as him, pretty much. So younger guy, it's the age thing for me, but
yeah,
who knows?
A lot of people are going to be worried about
if he even ages, I'm not sure.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to say again, I was the only ranker to have Matthews ahead of Woodhead here, and I was right. Matthews 11, Woodhead 9. I think it just reminds me of the old Guinness commercials. Genius! Cowboys Saints. What an ass kicking here by the Saints. I mean, besides Drew Brees' 4 touchdowns, are you buying any of the offense the Saints had here? I mean, Mark Ingram, 145 yards rushing. Get that out of here. That's a joke. That'll never happen again probably in his career. Marcus Colston, 7 for 107 and a touchdown. We finally start to see Colston kind of come back to life. Thomas and Sproles, each of them had a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown in this game. I mean, are you buying any of this?
Well, Thomas has been pretty good.
Thomas did have 24 touches in this game. So he's been getting the touches. On the season, he's the running back 15 in fantasy and standard scoring leagues.
It's unbelievable.
I want to say, another pat on the back for me, I did mention him as a potential flex guy this week on Friday's podcast. Obviously, I didn't see this coming. I think he finished as the number 1 fantasy running back this week. But, I mean, besides maybe Thomas, are you buying into any of this?
Well, I watched this game, and I have never thought Mark Ingram looked so good.
Yeah, he did look good. He did look explosive. I'll give him that.
He looked awesome.
He did.
I mean, it was Alabama all over again. And obviously New Orleans coaches watch the game as well, and they're going to be watching some film. I don't know. It's just something that definitely piqued my interest. He really, really looked good. He really did. So, no, I'm not expecting 145 and a touch next week, but I'm going to keep an eye on Ingram. He looked awesome. The only thing is there's just too much talent in the backfield there. He's not going to carve a role where he becomes the number 1 guy. Not necessarily in this offense, with the way they spread the ball around. Thomas, Sproles, Ingram now. Definitely liked how he looked, though. Something to watch.
Yeah. The real surprising for me was Jimmy Graham obviously not being as involved as he has been. This was the first game this year where he hasn't had either 100 yards receiving or a touchdown. So, in Rob's eyes, he's probably droppable.
Yeah, Colston, having Colston back was nice. Back, I mean actually performing. So I think it was just a fluke, though. But one more week.
Yeah, I'm not. I
can't go back to it, even though he's been good in years past. He's just been too bad this year.
Cowboys side, after having only 4 carries last week by DeMarco Murray, I believe he had 10 in the first quarter, if I remember correctly. Finishes the game as the only Cowboys player with a carry. And then again, like I said, my gut call on Romo was correct. 10 of 24 passing for just 128 and a touch. Romo will be much, much better moving forward. Obviously, Rob Ryan knew how to game plan for him. Monday Night Football, Dolphins-Bucks. Mike James gets carted off the field after fracturing his ankle, out for the season. We touched on Vincent Jackson, too, a little bit earlier, but gets shut down for the second straight game. Is he still a top 10 guy for you?
Getting there. Getting out of that. I don't know.
I think he's still top 10 for me because typically the Bucs have been throwing the ball 40, 50 times a game. For whatever reason, they got away from it in this game, and I think they're going to go back to it.
Yeah.
That's what they've been doing. I think this game was more an aberration than anything. And I think in prior games, it's been tough for VJax because he's had Seattle, things like that, tougher matchups.
Right.
So I think he bounces back.
This week, I wasn't expecting this kind of a game.
No,
not at all. But
Lamar Miller in this game, seven carries for 2 yards. I will never trust Lamar Miller again. I mean, obviously it hurts when Jonathan Martin and Incognito, his whole left side of his offensive line is gone.
Yep.
But just terrible game there. Rashard Matthews kind of comes through, though. 11 for 120 and 2 touchdowns on 14 targets. We kind of talked about on Friday's podcast about how Hartline and Wallace haven't been catching touchdowns. Matthews, obviously, the replacement for Brandon Gibson after he was down for the year. And Gibson obviously had quite a few touchdowns himself. Are you a fan of this, or do you think this is a fluke?
I'm a fan of it. I think it is a little bit of a fluke, but it's like you said, this is the replacement of Brandon Gibson, who was having a better than everyone expected season for sure. Yeah. It's something about Tannehill's read progression where that position is something that he looks to. 14 targets is hard to just forget about. And, decent size on this kid. I thought he looked pretty good last night, or the other night. So I don't know. I'm a fan, but not somebody I'm looking to pick up immediately. Not my number one claim. Certainly a guy I wouldn't mind to stash, though, and see what happens here going forward, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a guy to watch for me. I am buying into it a little bit, just like you are, but I think it's more a guy to watch. All right, so before we get into the waiver wire and you're all in and everything here, let's kind of go over and preview Thursday night's Colts-Titans game. Trent Richardson, still a bum. This isn't changing for us. We should almost just stop talking about him. T.Y. Hilton, though, has been having quite a few good games here in a row since the bye week, since Reggie Wayne's been gone. Obviously, he's a must start for you now, right? I mean, I said, I haven't done my rankings yet, but he's easily going to be top 20 for me.
Yeah, definitely number one guy with a good quarterback and a productive offense, and 2 weeks in a row since Wayne's been gone, over 100 yards, leading the team in targets. So. He's clearly the number one guy there, and like I said, very competent offense and a very good quarterback, so you got to like him.
Titans side, CJ2K, you're starting him if you got him still probably. I mean, Matt said, he's kind of moving back a little bit again, but you got him, you're starting him. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, how do you feel he fares in this game? His first full game back as a starter since I think back in like week 4 or 5, somewhere in there when he came in for Locker.
I mean, he'll be okay. Not anybody I'm starting. I think I don't remember where I ranked him. It certainly wasn't favorable.
It's got to be below. I mean, Colts have a pretty good pass defense, so he's got to be 20th, I would probably say off the top of my head.
I'd rather play the Case Keenums and Jason Campbells of the world than him.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to these waiver wire pickups. Some of these guys are still available in a lot of leagues, some of them. So some of them are going to be no-brainers, I think, for us, but Andre Brown, that's a no-brainer. You got to go out and get this guy. He's going to be everybody's number one waiver claim.
Definitely.
You should have picked him up before this game. Quite obvious there. Brandon Bostic, looked very athletic in this game. Scott Tolzien obviously looking for him a lot. Maybe we'll see a lot more check down passes. Seneca Wallace is done for the year. Packers go out and sign Matt Flynn back. Rodgers will be back eventually, but, I liked what I saw from Bostic.
Yeah, Quarles was the guy who kind of initially, filled in the role of Finley. Bostic had 3 targets. I think he had 3 receptions, but by far the superior athlete. So I could see his, usage going up week by week as they get more comfortable with him. He's a guy. He's another one of those guys. I'm pretty sure he's a former basketball player as well. He can't block for a lick, but that's what Corals excels at. So I think Bostic's going to carve a nice little role. Definitely a good call, Marcus. Good guy to look at, especially at that position. There's so few that you can really start with confidence. So hopefully he can turn into one of those in a couple weeks down the road.
Brian Leonard and Bobby Rainey, the two running backs for the Bucks that are going to fill in for Mike James now that he's done for the year. Leonard's the starter. I mean, I guess if Andre Brown is still there, he's obviously number one waiver claim, but Leonard is probably number two, right? He would be my number two claim, or number one claim if Brown's not there.
Yeah, I would say so. We saw 20 carries out of him last night. He had some receptions. He's a guy that can do it all, just not anything very, very, superior. Yeah. Rainey, he's been cut by 2 or 3 teams this year. He did look pretty good last night. He had the touchdown, nice 34-yard run. He's the quicker guy, but I think Leonard's going to be the one to make sure you want to get. Yeah. Rainey's not a bad stash, though. Keep an eye on him. You'd pick him up cheaper if you were in a type, fab type thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then the final guy here, John Carlson, Kyle Rudolph out, really shown last Thursday night. He looked really good. I mean, if you had to pick between Bostic and Carlson, which one are you getting?
Bostic, not close.
Not close, really?
Rudolph's out a month. He's got another 3 weeks. He'll come right back into that role. And I hate Minnesota. Well, I love Minnesota, but I hate Minnesota.
I feel like Ponder could be like King Checkdown too, though. If Alex Smith is King Checkdown,
is Ponder even playing this week? He's hurt.
He's like Prince Ponder.
Yeah,
he's like the Prince to.
How was Rudolph doing though while Ponder was in there?
No, I mean I hear you.
He's not the player that Rudolph is.
I don't think it's quite so.
Put it this way: I'm not playing either one of these guys.
No, not at all.
I want Bostic because it's got a higher upside, I think.
Yeah, he probably does. I just think it's a lot closer than what you made it out to be, for me at least.
Mr. Son of a Beach, let's play some cards.
All in, bluffing, calling, or folding him. Trent Richardson.
Calling or folding.
Rob Gronkowski. I am all in on Jamal Charles.
He was just compared to Barry Sanders. What?
All right, Matt, let's jump into your all-in segment here. Again, I'm going to have 3 guys for you, 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 1 wide receiver. I'm going to kind of give you some hints and see if you can name them. So I've had 5 20-plus fantasy games this season, tied for the second most with Drew Brees and Matthew Stafford, obviously behind Peyton Manning. I've thrown for 2 or more touchdowns in 4 straight games, and despite being the number 5 fantasy quarterback this season, I've only thrown for over 300 yards once, and that was back in week 1. Who am I? You get one guess.
Second with Drew Brees and Matthew Stafford, and behind Peyton Manning.
Give you one guess on each of these.
Oh. Is it... I don't know. Phillip Rivers.
Russell Wilson.
Oh, man.
Your boy Russell Wilson. You buying, calling, or folding Russell Wilson?
Buying. Percy's back this week. Love Percy. Has he had 25 points 3 games in a row now? Did I hear that stat?
I'm not sure. I would have to go back and check. I don't remember.
I'm buying it. He's been hot, and Percy's coming back. Lynch is a big weapon too, but his biggest weapon, Percy Harvin's back, or making his appearance. So I'm buying, absolutely buying. Great guy to pick up to try to get for the stretch run. Although with the performances he's had lately, it's going to be tough to get him away from his owner.
All right, so now on to the running back here. I've been outscored by Bilal Powell, Mike Tolbert, and Jacquizz Rodgers this year, despite never missing a game. I've scored 6 points or less in more than half of my games this year, despite being the quote-unquote starter. And my team has only produced 3,000-yard running backs in the last 10 seasons. Who am I?
Willis McGahee?
No. That'd be a little bit too easy if I'm throwing Willis McGahee in here. That would be an easy folding call, so absolutely not. It's actually Lamar Miller.
Oh.
So what are you doing with Lamar Miller? Buying, Buying, calling, or folding?
Folding. Fuck that guy.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not trusting this guy as far as I can throw
I think
him.
every week we have to analyze him and what he may do this upcoming week.
We should make
It's
it a
the
rule.
complete opposite.
We should make it a rule where we can't talk about Trent Richardson or Lamar Miller ever again on this podcast for the rest of the year.
No, we can't do that. We're here to give people
Relevant fantasy advice. Exactly my point.
So meaning like don't play them.
Oh.
We should start just. It's too bad. Miller, I thought was coming around, and then this week he put up a he put up a Trent Richardson, which is a pile of shit. So I don't know. I'm folding on him.
All right,
You can't trust the guy. You can't trust him.
Not at all.
It's like Vincent Jackson of running backs.
Finally, for the wide receiver here, I'm the number 14 wide receiver in standard scoring. Since my bye week, I'm averaging 7 receptions a game. I've also had 4 games this year, though, with 4 points or less. Who am I? So it's a guy that's been on the season performing almost like a wide receiver one, and has, obviously performing well lately, averaging those 7 receptions, but overall for the season,
Torrey Smith?
Not really getting it done necessarily. No, it's T.Y. Hilton.
Damn it, I didn't even get one right this week.
T.Y. Hilton.
Ruined my night.
Buying, calling, or folding T.Y. Hilton?
Buying, baby. Go get him. If it's not too late, this guy's a top 15. Rest of the season, no question. Number 1 guy. We talked about him a while ago. Big fan.
Yeah, I like him too a lot. With the Reggie Wayne injury, he's really stepped it up lately. But make sure to follow Matt and I on Twitter. Me at Marcus Katkin, Matt at Matt Dugal. Keep sending your questions to #BlindsidePod or emailing them to us at blindside@blindsidefootball.com. And don't forget, Matt, Rob, and I always live tweeting every Sunday from noon until kickoff. Send your start-sit questions to #AskBlindside. So, I've got a couple questions here. Andrew Friedman at AFriedman15 asks, what kind of production do you expect from Shane Vereen in PPR leagues? Shane Vereen obviously coming back this week.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm projecting 10 to 12 carries a game with another 4 to 6 receptions. I think he's going to be a very solid running back 2 in PPR leagues.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. Absolutely. It's just so hard to predict in that offense, and injury is a big concern with him. Obviously, he's coming back from one. He missed most of his rookie season. Not the healthiest of guys, so.
But when healthy, week 1 he looked like a beast.
Yeah, I agree. When I think I'm right with you in those. That sounds good. 10 to 8 to 12 carries type. 4 to 6 receptions.
Yep.
They need the weapons out there clearly, and especially catching the football for Tom. So he's somebody that can take a ball from anywhere in the field to the house. Somebody you got to get the ball to for sure.
Evan Hale, my buddy over at fakepigskin.com. Make sure you check them out. At ehale yay asks Harvin or Roddy White this week.
I think it's E-Hale, yeah.
Or yeah.
My rankings are right next to you. What do I got?
I don't know. I'm going to look up your rankings.
Harvin or Roddy White this week?
This isn't even a rankings question. This is which guy are you going to go with?
Sure it is. Harvin or Roddy White this week. Check my rankings, Evan, but I'm pretty sure I got Harvin ahead just barely.
I was going to say I'm going Harvin here. Roddy has been killing people lately.
Yeah.
Not even lately. All this year he's been killing people. And I think even in Harvin's worst game, even in limited touches, he'll still perform like Roddy's been playing. You know what I mean? So I think the upside of Harvin...
That's not too hard to do. I think I'd probably perform like Roddy's been playing.
Right, exactly. And I think the upside of Harvin, kind of outweighs that, and I'd go Harvin there.
Yeah, I agree.
Clay Elmore at Clay Elmore 5 asks, keeper league, and he's out of the race, so he's already, focusing on next year. He got offered Doug Martin for Nick Foles and Le'Veon Bell. He says his current quarterbacks are Tom Brady and Colin Kaepernick. Do you make that deal if you're him? Do you trade away Foles and Le'Veon Bell for Doug Martin?
I can see why he's asking us. It's a tough question. I'm going to deny that.
Wow, really? I would take Doug Martin. I like Doug Martin. I'm not a big Le'Veon Bell fan, and I think Nick Foles, as good as he's been, he's got Brady, he's got Kaepernick. Not really too worried about my third quarterback.
Right, Brady's old. Kaepernick hasn't been very good. Foles,
but you still the thing though there is in a keeper league, Brady's still going to be around for what 2 or 3 more years at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you still got 2 or 3 more years to worry about finding your new quarterback.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, you can let a guy like Doug Martin really come into his prime, and then you could trade him for, the next Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers.
Well, you might already have it in Foles with that offense.
No
Chip
way.
Kelly and
No
Eagles.
way.
So
Get out of here with that.
Clay, I'm saying keep Foles, or keep Foles, keep Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell is a rookie as well, and a centerpiece of that organization moving forward.
Foles is a second-year guy.
Le'Veon Bell, I said.
Oh, Le'Veon Bell. All right. I don't listen to everything you say. You know this. Make sure if you think you're good enough to be a blogger for our website, just let us know, guys. Email us at career@blindsidefootball.com. Send us a couple of your writing examples, and we'll see if we can, get you up on our team, get your stuff out there to all of our fans.
And if we don't like the samples, then you're droppable.
Yeah, droppable. We got to do with some emphasis to it.
I hope Druin listens to this one. I think we've said that about 15 times tonight.
I know. We should, guys. If you want to have a really good drinking game, go back every time we say droppable. Take a drink. You'll be wasted by the time you're hearing this part now.
Tweet all your droppable questions to @RobDruin
and
do everything.
@RDruin, yeah.
Everything that he says, do the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Matt, I don't got anything else. You got anything else?
No, that's it. I can't wait till we play that Flex song again, but
yeah,
next time.
Not until Friday. All right, see you guys.
See ya.
Yo, check it, it's my time. I'm rapping about Blindside, fantasy football podcast in this rhyme because they got me the inside scoop on Adrian Peterson. Yeah, he's that dude on Cam Newton. Yeah, they give me the news more on Megatron, Calvin Johnson if I stay tuned. On all quarterbacks, RG3 happens to be the fastest QB in the league. In fact, Colin Kaepernick is rider QB for them 49ers. It ain't hard to see, Some awesome people hosting Marcus Katkin and Matt Dugal. You should be joining. Skinny or fat, short or tall, anyone can tune in to Blindside Football. Have a try, dude. Listen on iTunes or blindsidefootball.com too.